have read. So there are members of the community the committee that have read different books, and we're going to go through and give kind of like a mini TED talk about the books and share information about what we've read, maybe some encouraging things to think about in relation to the areas that we covered. And then we're going to give folks in the room a chance to share thoughts on books that perhaps they've read. We're going to run through a poll and maybe a vote on a book or a couple of books tonight that we might choose to study as a community. So with that, before we jump into the next slide, why don't we have the folks that have been participating as a part of the committee introduce themselves, and then we can go round robin and have other community members in the room introduce themselves as well. So if you're a part of the Do It Community Partnership or have been participating in the planning, I think it'd be great for folks to know who you are. So I'll ask Melissa to go first, and then we'll kind of go round robin around the room.
Hi, I'm Melissa Del Rio. I am a community member in the Do It community and also on the Do It Community Partnership for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Committee.
Shauna?
I'm Shauna Spicker, the superintendent, and I'm also on the committee.
And I'll continue with my viewpoint. Andrea?
Hello, everyone. My name is Andrea Ryan. I use she, her pronouns. I'm a part of the DeWitt Community Partnership and also the St. John's Calling Coalition.
Thank you. Derek?
Well, my name is Derek Gotti, and I'm a community member and part of the committee.
And Dr. Cravata?
Hi, everyone. My name is Keith Cravata. I'm the principal at DeWitt Middle School and part of the community partnership.
And Sarah?
Hi, I am Sarah Rack, and I am a parent in the community and part of the committee.
All right. I think that's everybody that I can see. So I'm trying to scroll through on my phone. So why don't we do our community members? Maddie?
Hi, everybody. My name is Maddie. I am a steering committee member with the St. John's Calling Coalition.
Thank you for joining us, Maddie. And Jen? Oh, maybe she's...
Sorry about that. My name is Jennifer Kennemer, and I'm a parent in the community.
Thank you for joining us. Brooke?
Hi, I'm Brooke Lipper. I am a parent in the community.
Thank you for joining us, Brooke. Taylor?
Hi, everyone. I'm Taylor Bouchon. I'm the DeWitt community member, and I work in the curriculum team at DeWitt Public Schools.
Thank you for joining us, Taylor. Sean?
Hello, my name is Sean. I use pronouns he, him, that dude, part of the St. John's Calling Coalition, and I guess guest part of DeWitt Community Partnership and Diversity, Equity, Inclusion program. I'm not really sure where I am on that one yet.
Thank you, Sean. And then I can see it's Jay Bancroft, but I can't pick out the first name, so I apologize.
Did you say Bancroft?
Yep.
Oh,
Yes, I did.
That's me. Sorry. I'm having trouble hearing. My name is Joanna, and I work for the Bath Township Public Library.
Well, thank you for joining us. So we're excited to have a chance to chat tonight about the books that we've had a chance to read. Brian Depker, our curriculum director, is also a member of the community partnership, and he has read a book. He is not able to be with us tonight, but he has updated, to my knowledge, I believe he's updated his slide with a link that we can play that has some audio that's going to give you his feedback on the book that he actually went through and read. So with that, Melissa, you want to move us through the PowerPoint? So we've started with our mission statement, which is we will lead the DeWitt community in valuing and celebrating diversity and disrupting patterns of oppression to promote social equity. We will partner with our community to produce change that creates an environment of respect for all, a curriculum that is culturally responsive, and an ongoing dialogue that promotes understanding and inclusion for each, so all students can reach their potential. And that's really what we've tried to do in terms of programming, We've done equity challenges. We've had students come in and speak with us that are from other countries, and we're looking to continue to expand in spaces where we can address some of the ideas and perhaps concerns of the community. And this was one of the areas that we heard from a lot of people. They had interest in reading books that had a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And we all picked some different areas to address tonight. And so we'll do that as we kind of move forward. All right, so whenever we meet in a large group setting, we always go through our norms. I think it's important that we establish that before we dive in, but we always discuss listening with empathy. Be honest by speaking your truth. The goal is making things right, not being right. Actively to participate with respect. Question others when uncomfortable. The goal is to build your knowledge to better understand. Ask for permission before sharing stories outside of the group. Be humble, leave your ego at the door, and challenge the idea, not the person. I think it's really important as we meet and discuss that our goal is to set up a space where folks within the community or outlying communities are comfortable having a space that they feel safe in and sharing their ideas or concerns. And I feel like we've been successful in our time together to be able to do that. So those are our norms, and that's kind of where we operate from when we have our big meetings or community events. So next slide. So Shauna, you want to talk a little bit about the quote?
Did you say Sean?
Shauna, sorry.
Oh.
Sorry, I was unmuting. I just put this quote in here because I think that reading and books are a way of knowledge. And I think education is a pretty powerful weapon to changing the world. So I know that the more I've read books to get other people's perspectives has grown my understanding of the world.
Thank you for sharing that. All right, so we'll move on to our next slide. And what you'll find is what we're going to do is each person that has read their book will give a brief synopsis, and we'll kind of go through, and then we'll have some time for Q&A as we move towards the end. So Dr. Spickert, you're up first.
All right, so I read This Chair Rocks, a manifesto against ageism. So ageism was the ism that I took to read about. And I was going to use a joke like, they gave ageism to the old person, but then I'm actually being a little ageist when I say that. So I actually learned a lot from this book. I did put that I recommend it for mature audiences because there is a whole chapter about sex and intimacy, but ageism is a topic that is for all ages. And I think that a lot of times it goes unnoticed as being, something that can be based on bias and prejudice because it's kind of a natural part of life. But the author, Applewhite, she argues that it's not natural and it's kind of a social construct. And our particular community looks at it differently than some cultures. And so the book was really thought-provoking for me. It challenges readers to examine their own biases. And I actually look at some things a little differently after reading it. It also talks about valuing the contributions of elder people as well as younger people. It highlights ways to which ageism can limit opportunities and create barriers, and then also offers some practical ways or an advice to navigate ageism. So again, it challenged me to kind of confront my own biases and to rethink what it means about growing older. And, I think if you're thinking about ageism, it's a good book to read. If you're growing older and kind of questioning that, it did give me a perspective where it's not so bad after all. So.
Thank you, Dr. Spickert. All right, Melissa, you can go ahead and advance. Looks like Derek is up next.
Yes, hi y'all. I'll be introducing, and I recommend a book called The Tools. And Dr. Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels combine here. And The Tools is, as they say on the cover of the text, the area that we're talking about here is mental health. And I think the stigma associated with mental health plays a role in impacting diversity and equity and inclusion. And in particular, I think of mental health more focused as Stutz and Michaels do. And what I like that they really offered that addresses this area is they normalize mental health. So they talk about tools or 5 mental exercises that look to really support imagination and empowerment. And typically when mental health is thought about, like people have to go to a doctor or somebody in power, and then there is a diagnosis made and labels are created. And what I like about Stutz and Michaels, and they're both mental health professionals, but they talk about mental health as a spectrum, as a gradient. It's not an ill health or it's not bad health or poor health. These are just descriptions of ways that people think and patterns, and they really support and normalize and try to empower imagination coming from the individual. And so I thought that was super awesome, and that touched base with me as someone that experiences various degrees of mental health understanding and as well being a mental health professional. So I struggle as a client and a patient, and I've understood that world, and having this perspective where Stutz and Michaels also share their own perspectives and personal anecdotes, and again, kind of normalize the experience of mental well-being. And so I really do support and encourage this for older teens or as adults. And yeah, the tools is a really great read.
Thank you, Derek. Andrea?
Hello, everyone. I read Living Beyond Borders, Growing Up Mexican in America. I really love this book. It was a collection of different things. So it had short stories, personal essays, comics, poetry, and it really was a nice way to celebrate the diversity in Mexican culture and through stories. I myself am Mexican, and so this really touched me in a way that, one, I felt more connected with myself, and I just felt more connected with the community. Growing up, I hadn't been very in touch with the Mexican side of myself, and just honestly, through this past probably 2 or 3 years is when I've really started to explore this. So this is an amazing book. And it's really for young adults and anyone older, you know. I highly recommend this book to kind of get some great insight into the fabulous culture that's within Mexican culture. So Margarita Longoria was the editor, and there's lots of different authors throughout the story. So definitely recommend. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Melissa, you're up.
Let's see if I can manage this. So my book was Grievers, and Adrienne Marie Brown was the author. And it was interesting. The book took place, the setting, it's a fictional book, but it took place in Detroit. And this young woman, my ism was LGBTQ, but this person was the character in the book was very intersectional in the fact that she was young, she was biracial, she was poor, she was LGBTQ. And so the book is based on an epidemic, believe it or not, a little bit different from our epidemic in that it was more of a something they called syndrome H8, and people would go into a catatonic state. And the pandemic was mostly focusing and attacking African American individuals. Her struggle was, she was biracial, and she was being exposed all over. She was never getting it. So one of her struggles was, I'm not Black enough to be taken by this pandemic. Another is that grief. She dealt with grief through the whole book, you know, from her mother being I don't want to tell too much of the story, but dealing with grief from her father passing, mother, then the grandmother. So very interesting. She the other part was very poor, in that she didn't even have funds in health insurance to have her mother treated once her mother was diagnosed with the pandemic illness, and how she just forged through the whole thing, the whole book and the whole pandemic, you know, trying to find food for herself and take care of her ailing Asian grandmother. And yeah, it was an interesting book. Although it's fictional, there was so much truth to a lot of the things that she experienced in the book, you know, just fitting in as, you know, a biracial woman and an LGBTQ. She was more of the less feminine partner in her with her other partner. And so a lot of that she just experienced, and being poor was huge in the book as well. So, and the grief was just overwhelming. And I won't give too much away, but she does try to figure out herself, because she comes from parents that were activists as well, and a father who was a researcher. And she and in the book tries to figure out a pattern of how these people are getting the illness. So definitely, I thought a good one to read.
Thank you, Melissa. Dr. Cravata.
Hi, everyone. I apologize. I don't have my camera on. I am listening in intently and appreciating the thoughts. I just have to be in the car too right now. So Marcello in the Real World was a great book. Honestly, the term neurodivergence was a bit new to me when I chose to read this book. And essentially, if it's new to anybody else, the way that one way I characterize it for myself is that essentially means that someone's brain being organized a bit differently than the average brain, potentially. So it's a story. It follows a person named Marcello. That person has various different autism type spectrum things, and one is that they hear music in their head that others can't hear. And so there's various points throughout the book where certain people believe that this person actually does hear that, and certain people believe that they don't. The quote at the top I found really interesting because I think that it shows that sometimes when this story exemplifies how some people judge people based on one experience, interaction, or something they may think about them. And it turns out to be something totally different. So it's a powerful story, follows through many different stages of life. It can be recommended for any audience, I think, really. There's actually, I think, a number of young adults that have also read this. So certainly one that I would highly recommend. And I think there's a lot of great themes that go through it.
Thank you, Dr. Cravata. So this is Brian Decker's recommended book, and he's got a recording for us to listen to.
I don't know if you've shared like audio, but we can't hear it. I'm wondering if I play it with my mic off, if you guys can hear it. Do you want me to try that?
When we can give that a try.
Let me see if I don't know. Let's see.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any sound either.
All right, I'm here to give a book talk tonight about
Can you hear that?
the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass.
Yes.
I'm a former history teacher here at DeWitt Public Schools. This is something that I taught, using my classes, very near and dear to my heart. Frederick Douglass was a titan of early American letters, self-taught, escaped slavery at 20 years old, then 5 years is nationally known as an orator. A commanding physical presence, a tremendous storytelling style. He was a transatlantic traveler. He was world famous. Took Ireland and England and Scotland by storm. Lived there for several years and spoke. He was a preacher, a writer, a thinker, a publisher, one of the most photographed people in the 19th century, actively supported women's suffrage, and on and on. He was a voice of people who had no voice. He was the voice of America of his age, on par exceeding the Twains, the Steinbecks, and of course, Abraham Lincoln. The force of his writing, the moral clarity is remarkable. The narrative of the life The book I'm recommending is just that, the story of Douglas's life in his first 3 decades, in his own words. The gripping and horrifying first-person account of American slavery, a courageous escape, and the trials and tribulations of his early work as an abolitionist. It's a great entry point to Douglas, but his speeches and his later works, he wrote 3 autobiographies in his life, they're great as well. So again, I can't recommend this book enough. There's also a great book about Douglas called Frederick Douglass, Prophet of Freedom, a biography that was written by Yale scholar, Flint, Michigan native, and MSU grad David Blight. It is wonderful as well. These 2 books would be wonderful in tandem. That's all for me. Thanks for listening. All right, I'm here to.
Thank you, Dr. Spicker, for getting the presentation through the audio. All right, so next I'm up. The book that I read is called Disability Visibility. My area to focus on was ableism. And the author for the book is Alice Wong. Alice is a disabled activist, writer, editor, media maker, and consultant. She's also the founder and director of the Disability Visibility Project. So that's an online community directed toward creating and sharing and amplifying disability media and culture. I was very intrigued by this book. It made me think about a number of things that I think I take for granted in my everyday life, the access that I have, the ability to do certain things. And in the book itself is multiple firsthand accounts where people are telling their story about their life experiences. And it's a broad array of topics. It will cover everything from medical trauma to personal relationships to career success, dysfunction within families, art, activism, history, politics. And the folks will share their stories through the lens of intersectionality. So there are many of the authors are either queer or women or people of color, and they're drawing upon their specific disabilities and how they have been impacted by their life journeys. And so as a recommendation for the book, I listed that I thought it was more for mature audiences because it does touch on some very specific things, and the language can be a little strong in some places, but you'll learn about medical abuse and malpractice and racism and sexism and classism. And there's even a couple instances where sexual assault is mentioned or physical injury. So it was gripping in a sense that there are things that I just really and truly was just so unaware of. And so it was a real eye-opening experience to go through and think about processes that are in place or processes that are not in place to support folks with disabilities and the multiple ways that they can show up and impact someone's movement through life on a daily basis. So I thought it was a good read, but again, I would really say that this would be something that would be more for an older audience. If we had students that were interested, I would probably say they would most assuredly probably need to be in high school, but it would be a great read for adults just to think about where we could be active and the things that we can learn about disability as we move through learning about this space and ableism. So that would be what I would tell you about the Disability Visibility book. So this is a moment where we wanted to reach out to you as community members to share about books that you might have or recommendations that you might have about books that you've read, things that you'd like to share. We also want to know a little bit about your interest level in doing a book study or group. So there's an email address that you can email to. There's a member of our group that will collect that information, and that's dewit.dei@gmail.com. You can email in there. But is there anybody in the group that would like to share about other books that they've read that they thought would be good as a potential community read? We would love to hear from you. So if you're comfortable doing so, feel free to unmute and share, or you could drop that information in the chat, and we could kind of bring that to folks' attention as we went through. So is there anything that anyone would like to share about a read that they've had? I'm not seeing anything in the chat. Okay. Well, if there's not books out there that you have read or you thought would be good for the community, we do have a poll. Melissa, I'm not sure if you can get to it or not, but there is a poll in the chat and poll in the system where we can give folks the opportunity to vote on a book maybe that they heard a little bit about tonight that they might have an interest in reading. Let me see. Okay, I believe I just launched it.
Yep, it's up.
All right, so go ahead and take a look. I've listed all the titles for the books that we did a description on tonight, and you can vote. There is a space for others, so if someone does have a book that they might have an interest in and they'd like to share, we could enter that information in, or you could send that through to the email address that was included. Looks like right now the leaders are the tools. Marcelo in the real world. Disability visibility, all the numbers are moving. Living Beyond the Borders, Growing Up Mexican and American, looks like that's our leader right now as a book that folks may have an interest in reading. And we're open to doing, again, if there are other books that folks have knowledge of that they think would be good as a community read, or if they think that if one of the topics that we've kind of addressed in the presentation tonight kind of hits home with you about something you'd like to learn more about, we don't have an issue with doing more than one study. We would love it if there's folks that have an interest in leading a study. And we would love to work with you and, enrich our community and have some important discussions like that. All right.
There was something put in the chat. Can you see that?
I got to end the poll to get back to it. Sorry, doing this from my phone has been a little bit tougher tonight.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Oh, someone put something in the chat. So Sean put James Baldwin, A Collection of Speeches and Lectures, great book.
Okay. And we can keep that and record that as information as another potential book that we could throw on the list. Any other suggestions of books that folks have read? And again, no pressure. We just want to give folks in the community an opportunity to share ideas on the books that they've read that they thought might be good. So James, thank you for Sean, thank you for throwing that in. All right, so Andrea, while we have you, we would love to give you an opportunity to plug this upcoming event, Spill the Ink.
Okay, cool. So DeWitt and St. John's Calling Coalition have combined forces, and we have this awesome event happening. It's called Spill the Ink Poetry Showcase. And we have a couple of special hosts. They are slam poets from Detroit. And we're looking for some Clinton County youth, anywhere between the ages of 15 to 24. They can come on stage and just share a poem that they have. And they also will get a $25 gift card for doing so. And the gift cards are brought to you by the Clinton County Substance Awareness and Prevention Coalition. So that's one of our leading partners. And it's going to be at the East Olive Community Center on April 23rd from 12:30 to 1:30. So that's that. And then also we have Pride Fest that's kicking off in June 3rd from 12 to 4 downtown St. John's, and you'll see me posting lots more about that. So we are looking for volunteers, sponsors, donators. So yeah, if it's something that you might want to get involved in, please reach out. We are very visible on social media, Facebook, Instagram, and emails, phone number, all that stuff is really easy to contact us. So we would love to have you be part of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. All right, I guess before we move closer to the close, are there any questions from our community members that have attended tonight? You can feel free to open your mic or put it in the chat.
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm wondering if Keith, if you're comfortable, would you share more about what it was like to learn about the term neurodivergence? And you kind of, I thank you for sharing, like it was kind of a new term to learn. So I'm just wondering how that new thing is organizing, fitting in.
Yeah, can you hear me okay?
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So, yeah, so when when I first heard the term, honestly, I mean, I knew it had something to do with the brain, and I knew that it had to, combining the neurodivergence together kind of stopped my own. But, and I know that um, that when we talk about things, when, we think about students that may, learn in unique ways. When we think about people that may have various different ways that they are accommodated in things, I think about this. But when I really started to dig in and kind of, learn more, it really kind of struck me as, a lot of this has to do with brains. And I don't always myself go towards and think about, like, brains are what are really thinking about the operation of that and how that relates to the neurodivergence that people experience, and how people identifying differently, people being in a way that they learn differently, in a way that they may think about things differently, is all part of how a brain is organized and how a brain operates. And so that kind of brain research started to really resonate with me. I know personally too, I'll share, we have a family member who has Tourette's syndrome. And so I think that with that, we've learned and started to educate ourselves a little more on what it means to have a brain that's just organized in a different way than what an average person may be thinking it would be, and what it and so that's where that term kind of I'm still learning. But I think that reading this book really helped me too to kind of think about a story of somebody going through their life with certain people that were very readily able to understand and accept it, and others that really struggled with that, and to understand that, and the ways that impacted relationships this person had, the ways that impacted careers this person had.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, thank you so much, Keith. Thank you.
Other questions about books or topics?
I wanted to add, kind of thinking about all of the different books that we learned about today and the importance of libraries, just because like libraries are the hub for keeping all of these beautiful voices under one roof. I think the library holds such a special place in communities, because we can learn so much from other people, and about other people through the pages. And, learning is a process. So this can always be a starting point for us to learning, and we just continue that. It's a never-ending process, but it's also a very beautiful thing. So yeah, I just loved hearing about all the different books. I already just kind of downloaded one, the disability visibility. That sounds really great. So thank you for sharing that, Dwight.
It was my pleasure, and like I said, it was a very educational and humbling read for me. And I think it is important that we look at ways that we can get books like this out. I know that the DeWitt DeWitt Library has been really willing to order copies and give copies of books in that promote certain areas, and they've been interested and willing to help with DEI type topics as well. So I think that we could potentially talk with them about maybe seeing if they don't already have some of these books on their shelves, getting these books on their shelves, and then talking with community members and letting them know that it's out there. So I think that there's ways that we could get it promoted, and increase the education and understanding for folks within our community, which I think is really one of the big goals of our group. It looks like we got a couple new posts in the chat.
Yeah,
All
I was just gonna share that with you.
right, you want to go ahead and call them?
Sure. I know you're on your phone, sir. So book suggestions. Once I Was You, a memoir of love and hate in a torn America. The author is Maria Hinojosa. Also Borderlands, La Frontera, the new Mestiza by Gloria and Zudala. And then I would also recommend authors Carmen Maria Machado and Roxane Gay. There's another one, You'll Never Believe What Happened to Lacey, by Amber Ruffin and Lacey Lamar, an adult book, but a peek into racism from childhood to adult.
Thank you for reading that out of the chat, and thank you for sharing that. I think that as we look at the suggestions that folks have given us tonight, it'll be a good opportunity for us to share that out in social media. We're recording tonight, so people will have an opportunity to review this and watch this session. But again, creating awareness and education is a part of what we want to do in our community, because it'll make it better for us as adults. And then as we have conversations with our children and bringing them into some of those discussions that are appropriate for the books that are at a level for them to have some level of understanding with. So thank you for sharing that. We really appreciate the suggestions. And I think we need to work towards getting a study going, like picking out one of these books and targeting it and getting folks together and having some important conversations around some of these areas. So thank you for all the suggestions. Anything else that anybody else would like to share? All right, hearing nothing, I again apologize for my technical difficulties tonight. Thank you, Melissa, for taking over and running the show from behind the scenes. I apologize for having my camera off. I'm on my phone, but I'm just glad that we were able to get together tonight, share about some of the books that we've read. Like I said, there's some really powerful stuff out there. And thank you for all the suggestions that folks made, and watch for us to get a study going and publicize some of these books as we look to educate our community.